Not the intermediary of the priest of the time, the parish priest of the time, Father Crompin, introduced me to his church, it just renovated. It had been quite a few years since it was under renovation. And a beautiful church, a small Romanesque church in Outreseille, which I visited. However, immediately I was impressed by the stained glass windows, extraordinary stained glass windows. And I only found out afterwards by asking that they were from Cocteau, because no one was talking about it. And even Father Crompin spoke very little about it. Consequently, it remained something hidden. And why didn't we discuss it for a period of 50 years? Because it was something enigmatic. Because Cocteau, by not employing the conventional depiction of sacred art, namely Christian and so on, it left a considerable number of individuals perplexed, pondering and asking, but what was his intention? And as a result, it led me to develop an interest in Cocteau's work by reading his plays, his poems, and watching his films, and engaging in other related activities, to immerse myself in his work, and try to understand, decipher this work that he did late in Metz at the St. Maximin Church. I authored my initial articles on Cocteau in an attempt to comprehend and provide some clues for understanding his work, as it is not immediately obvious or self-explanatory. As he left nothing, like many artists who do not talk about what he created, he really left his work without explanation, in quotation marks. And it's up to me to discover. That's it, a great treasure hunt, because in the end it almost makes me think of, to some extent, the search for explanations about prehistoric caves. That's kind of it. The art he leaves us is a bit like prehistoric art because it appeals precisely to primitive arts, Greek mythology, etc. Very little, ultimately, in Christian arts. There is virtually no Christian representation. So everything comes from mythology, ancient arts, etc. So I feel like I'm discovering a Chauvet cave. I believe it was in 1994 that the Chauvet cave was discovered. It's the same. They let us discover a totally new, totally foreign universe. And that intrigued me. So I penned my initial articles on the Reva space, and that is when a local publisher reached out to me to inquire if it was feasible to transform it into a book, more comprehensive regarding Cocteau's work, a work that nobody at present had authored a book about. So it remained something completely untouched to be explored. Following that, the editor told me that it would also be interesting to see, because since I was into stained glass, to see other stained glass windows made by contemporary artists. There are others, these are the ones from the cathedral, so Jacques, Villon, Roger Bissière, and of course Marc Chagall. No one had written about these artists either, and that's where I discovered something extraordinary in Metz, that we were pioneers in the introduction and integration of contemporary artists into a cathedral. Due to World War II damages, numerous bulging stained glass windows required complete replacement to rectify the issue caused by the war. And the habit being taken at that time to make pastis, that is to say, to copy and not to call on artists of our time. Or we were fortunate at the time, after the war, to have Robert Renard, chief architect of historical monuments, who had the brilliant idea of calling on artists with great signatures of our time. It was Jacques Villon's case. Jacques Villon, his real name, people don't know, but he made the first stained glass windows at the Guédrale in 1957. His real name is Gaston Duchamp, so he is the eldest brother of the Duchamp family, so it's not just any artist. So we are fortunate in Metz to have the older brother of the Duchamps, who exclusively created stained glass windows in Metz. Additionally, I was also approached to write about the stained glass windows of Roger Bissière. The interesting thing about Roger Bissière is that he leaves me with a non-figurative work. I wouldn't say abstract, but non-figurative, so it's still unique for a cathedral. And then, of course, there is Marc Chagall, so a book that has not yet been released, which is currently being published. I think it will be released in the autumn. And it was a bit of a request that came from my publisher, urging me to continue building on the momentum of my Cocteau work. In order to successfully complete this task, we need the expertise of renowned artists and the beauty of stained glass. And in Metz, it still has an important particularity because we were innovative at this stage. Numerous individuals followed the events in Metz, as subsequent to Chagall's departure to Reims, there were artists who also went to Notre Dame and so on. So the movement that was initiated by Robert Renard, followed in other cathedrals of France.